Kill all the infidels, take واحد.
President Obama, your policy against the Islamic State has brought us once again to kill an American citizens. Under those circumstances. Under those circumstances.
Cut.
Circumstances.
On paying over $500 million to a PR firm to create fake terrorist videos.
Chop. You okay? 5 minutes.
Under those circumcision.
This is why. Less circumstances. This is why.
This is why we see you and your allies, the Zionis, the only responsible. I said Zionis, right? I said Zionis. Zionist.
Right, I saw that. That was one of these dozens and dozens and dozens of false flag stories that we report on over at False Flag Weekly News. And that's also well documented. That's not one that anybody's arguing didn't happen. So the idea that terrorism is being used clandestinely.
This is why we see you. Halla Samir, halla! We see you and your allies, the Zionists, the only responsible of the killing of the... شفتك الازيكونين.
And even the spectacle of terrorism, when maybe there isn't even real terrorism in some cases, is being used to manipulate public opinion. It really should be a no-brainer.
If you want the killing to stop, you give us $10 million. Change your name to Muhammad and kill Justin Bieber. Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar. Ouch.
Cafe. In cafe. And cafe.
جيب الكافيه, جيب الكاوة.
Put your hand up. Put
Ow.
your hand. It will stop the bleeding. Put your hand up.
But because we're just pummeled incessantly with the mainstream version of things, people have been brainwashed into being afraid to even go there.
I mean, I have to admit, in every bag of apples, you got some rotten ones. You do have some lunatics that might attribute themselves to being Muslim, But anyone who's sincerely practicing Islam and sees what it stands for, these are the things that really agitate and aggravate you when you know really what Islam is about, and then you have to keep defending it against these things that potentially don't have even if all the Muslims were drinking alcohol, for instance, or eating pork, or being unjust. Islam calls to be just. Islam calls to stay away from evil. So you can't blame Islam, is right? As a good example, you probably know, if the drunk driver crashes the Mercedes-Benz, you can't blame the manufacturer, right, for the drunk driver.
Right.
But now we're going above and beyond, and we're saying, hold on, many truth seekers out there who are going down these rabbit holes are saying, hold on, there's even more here, right? When you start to uncover the history, and we see that in previous times certain things have been uncovered, then this thing, $500 million on a PR firm, fake videos.
It's a rap. It's a rap. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
أحسن.
Red light. لا ريكورد.
لا ريكورد. وانت لا ريكورد. ولا واحدة تيك.
لا ريكورد.
Terrorists, I mean, to do what? What's that all about?
Well, it's even worse than that, Eddie. I mean, that was one example. But isn't it bizarre that the public relations agency that handles ISIS videos is run by Rita Katz, the Israeli intelligence agent? It's called Site Intelligence Group, SITE, and it's a Mossad spinoff. So it's basically an Israeli operation, and yet we're told that essentially every ISIS video that is released goes through Site Intelligence Group. Now, many of these have been proven fake.
Continuity نالدي. Take 47. Action.
President Obama. والله عليك. جيبها ليلي.
Push. Very good.
Over and over and over. In fact, recently we discovered that one of the worst supposed Muslim terrorists in the whole world, a guy named Australia witness, supposedly operated online, turned out to be none other than Joshua Goldberg.
The suspect, rather, that federal investigators stopped from carrying out a terror plot here in Kansas City.
This was published in the Sydney Morning Herald, and they have been tracking this guy online, Joshua Goldberg.
A young Jewish man operating out of his basement in Florida who's been impersonating evil Muslim terrorists and evil white supremacists and people like that all over the world. Just like this new guy in Israel, Kedar, that was just arrested.
An Israeli teenager has faced court accused of targeting Victorian schools with hoax bomb and shooting threats. He's alleged to have made more than 2,000 calls as part of a worldwide campaign to spread fear and alarm.
Michael Kedar is accused of spreading terror across the globe.
For thousands and thousands of threats against Jewish community centers was actually a Jewish Israeli kid, a young man, whose uncle was a high-up guy in Israeli black operations intelligence. So we've seen so many of these cases. But one of the things that really aggravates me the most is that they blame this on radical Islam, on supposedly the more pious the Muslim, the more dangerous. Yeah. And this is the exact opposite of the truth. Even if we accepted the official story of, let's say, 9/11, then these guys were not pious. The people that we're told were the 19 hijackers. There may have been some identity theft there, I don't know, but they were, their behavior was the least Islamic that you could ever imagine. And then that same pattern repeats itself over and over and over. In so many of these cases, the patsies who are blamed for these supposed radical Islamic attacks are people with radically un-Islamic lifestyles. There's stories you can't believe. The mastermind of the Paris attacks in November 2015 was in a car. So they were all drinking and smoking big joints, and they got pulled over as they were fleeing the scene of the crime, heading to Belgium, I think it was, and the cops just let them go and waved them on. And so what we're seeing in these cases over and over is that these patsies, the supposed radical Muslims who were set up to take the blame for these things, are marginal characters. They're kind of low-life characters, often from Muslim backgrounds, but very rarely serious Muslims, and they get involved with organized crime, drug trafficking, the corrupt side of the police establishment, the intelligence establishment. They get manipulated, and they get set up.
I think now we're going to take a break, but we can get past the ad hominem attacks. Many people start, attacking the person who wants to bring up questions. But I think now we've proved something that, okay, if we can't trust this person, whoever's bringing these claims, we've shown some examples through history, and then we gave the big example of the just outright lie of, that Bush with the whole weapons of mass destruction, which over 2 million innocent people over a span of 10 years were killed. We should have a right to ask some very important questions without being labeled, whatever label. I think, is that a fair assumption? Without
I would think so.
It's common sense.